Yo, and we're live, and we're live, and we're live. Welcome to Gear Dive Jam with myself, B-Boy Tech.
Yo, and Travarsi here.
Hey, it's good to see you. It's good to
Yeah,
see
good to see
everybody.
you. It's
No
been
doubt.
too long.
Yeah. And I feel like this was a long month because it feels like it's been 2 months since we've done the show. But it's good to be back on Gear Dive Jam. And for all of those watching it live, thanks for joining in. We're going to be featuring the WMD Performance Mixer and Metron.
Oh, yeah. That's a lethal combo right there.
It is. That's a lethal roll.
Yep.
No doubt. And who we got with us tonight?
We have Alex, a.k.a. Nasty Nachos himself here, throwing it down. And we also have Chris. I know, right? And Chris Roberts.
Yo. Dope. So, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be cool to dive in on these things. Let's go ahead and get started. Yeah. So here we are back at Gear Dive Jam. Welcome, Alex. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you guys here.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, WMD, powerhouse, period. Let's just say that to start off with. And we are featuring two of your biggest modules that I feel like they're some of the most popular modules in the modular world, quite frankly. Alex, tell us about the two modules, the Metron, which is a sequencer, and the performance mixer. Prime us a bit.
Yeah, for sure. So the idea is to turn, just to really make modular and live performance aspect of modular kind of at the forefront. So with these modules, the idea is to really be playing the modular like an instrument, whether you're playing on stage or in the studio or just writing music. The workflow that we're all about is not stopping, always using your hands, and just really just making music in real time. So the performance mixer was one of the first modules that we developed in order to achieve this. And this was all about, we'd go to shows and we'd see modular people play one patch and they'd be able to play for 10 or 15 minutes on that patch. But then after about that, they'd turn everything down and that was the set. And so William had the idea of, using the mixer more like a DJ mixer, so you could have the pre-fader listen and be able to cue something up before it happens. So you can tune oscillators, you can make new sequences, you can do all these things in your headphones while the crowd's listening to what you've already made, and then you can bring something new in, whether that's a new part or a completely new track idea, new concept. Mm-hmm. And so then we took a lot of basic mixer concepts like auxiliary sends. We threw those in there. There's two auxiliary sends. There's a master send and return for master effects, so a master insert. And then there's ability for it to be expanded out to 10 channels, as well as a mutes expander, and then a DB25 individual output expander that gives you pre-fader outs for all the channels. And then moving from there, we decided to make this sequencer called Metron. And that was one of basically born out of the same idea. We wanted to be able to play for longer and to never have to stop the clock. So one of my biggest gripes with sequencers was, like, especially older ones, is I'd make a pattern, and then in order to make a new pattern, I had to stop the clock, whether that be to copy and paste what I was doing, or to save what I was doing, or even delete it. That just drove me crazy. So our goal with Metron was to never stop the clock. And so what we came up with was a 16-step trigger sequencer. And you can see 4 tracks at a time. There's 16 tracks total. And one of the cool things about Metron is the look-ahead sequencing. So this means you can be on one pattern, and then you can go in and edit a new pattern on the fly and visually create something. So Metron has visual cueing, and the mixer has audible cueing. So that was basically the idea for the Metron, and then it came out afterwards of like, let's try and max the thing out. So we put effects in there. We made expanders that let you use voltage, and you can do quantized and unquantized voltages out of those. And we really just tried to make a thing, again, that's just really fun to play and really hands-on.
I think you achieved that.
Yeah.
I definitely think you achieved that.
I definitely have to agree.
Yeah. And so I don't know, Chris and Travarsky, what are kind of like your favorite things about Metron to start with Metron?
For Chris, me, you want to start?
Yeah. It was super easy to learn, right? I ran through everything once, and there's not multiple levels, so it's just easy to get stuff done. You'll see I'm actually doing live looping with it in my video, so I'm recording on live into it, editing and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's because it's so easy to move around quickly that it's easy to do that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. My two favorites, well, the obvious is like the visual aspect that you can just immediately see 4 sequences at a time and change them on the fly. But I love the fill in the mute. So I tend to leave it on that screen. Like that's my once I get going in a pattern, like that's I sit in there and have fun juggling those fills and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got go ahead, Alex.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say it's nice to have both, because the mixer and the Metron, because you can, if you need to mute audio, you can, but if you want to mute triggers and let something ride, you can mute triggers on the Metron side.
Yeah.
Nice. So someone's asking, so this is a percussion sequencer.
So Metron is basically it's a gate sequencer at heart, and it started out as that, and then we added Volterra as the voltage aspect of that. So that's a expander. The reason we did this is just basically to focus our efforts in development. So we really wanted to focus on the gate sequencing and just do the most powerful gate sequencer we could make. And then when we went to the voltage side, we decided to use Metron's interface so we could make a very small module. And basically you just hold a step and then turn a knob to go to whatever voltage you want. Or if you're on a quantized voltage range, you can go, it will show you what note you're playing if you're tuned to 0 volts equals C. So it's it's really awesome for doing both melodic and drum sequencing, as well as parameter sequencing. You can kind of do whatever you want with it.
Dope. Alex, what's your favorite feature on the performance mixer? If you had to name one right now.
For me, the aux ends.
Dope. What about you, Chris?
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if there's a feature, but I come from a history of using mixers as part of making music, and not having that, I didn't understand how much it actually was a little bit of a block for me. And once the mixer got in there, my flow just really increased. Again, because I could rely on all these old techniques that I was used to, right? Getting everything, that visual aspect of doing the mix, panning. I do a lot of panning, so being able to position stuff like that. And yeah, we need more aux sends though. 2's not enough.
What about you, Corey?
Yeah, so I remember when I first got the mixer, and I just had to look at it because it's one of those things. It's powerful, man. It changed things for me in the sense that it's cool to be able to have everything. And it's not like Chris said, to be able to have everything right there and rely on stuff that you just already know from being in the studio for so many years. Like, it's a mixer. Like, it's a straight up mixer, so you can pan stuff and you can have aux sends. But then what started opening things up for me is being able to send an LFO to the panning, and to be able to have something there that you can kind of create movement with without, you're not really modulating the thing itself, you're modulating the track the panning on the track that it's going into. And then to me, that creates, you know, obviously gives you more avenues to modulate things and create movement besides just, you know, modulating the parameters of whatever it is. This is just like panning, kind of creating sway and creating motion. That little bit of something meant a hell of a lot to be able to have that, you know. And then too, I remember Alex, I ran into Alex at Synthplex, and he was showing me Metron at the time, but then he also, you know, obviously was showing me the performance mixer, and I was like, what about mutes? And he was like, yeah, well, we have that, but I just like to throw the faders, right? And now that I have it, I see exactly what he means. It's like, it's dope to be able to set your levels, and you could just throw the faders in and out. You could even play those like that. So it's real flexible. That's just what
you just took my favorite thing, which is set those gains and throw those faders. I'm all about that. Like fader juggling. Hell yeah.
I was going to bring up the size because, like, it's definitely we didn't really, you know, mean for it to be like so perfect for one or two hands to be able to throw like three at a time, and that's all just because of the size of the parts and because of the size of Eurorack, you know. But that ended up being like one of my favorite things too. It's just like, yeah, there's mutes and you can get the mutes expander, but like once you start using the faders like that, you get real into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it keeps it hands-on too, in a different way. I mean, I guess you could do the same kind of hands-on thing with mutes as well. But that's what I thought was dope. It really, the idea of the size. Initially, you might think, and I will say that I've had conversations and we had all said, yo, the thing is too big though. But the reality is performance mixer and all that you get in it is actually perfect size for performance. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not too big, and it can't be any smaller if you want to perform with it and have that kind of ability to move around it the way you can. So, yeah, it's really dope.
Totally.
I dig that a lot.
One thing that I really like about it is that once I switched to the performance mixer, I was able to take out input modules because the stereo channels are able to handle those levels, like if I put the dig attack or something straight in or the rhythm. But also I love the fact that it has the A-B options. So really, even though you have this 10-channel mixer, it becomes like a 14, 15 channel mixer, because I'll patch in different sounds like on A versus B, and even if it's like a mono thing, I'll switch that little switch and then just jump into a completely different sound. So yeah, I mean, it's dope.
Yeah.
I always use those for like open and closed hi-hats, and then like two percussion sounds that might sound good together. Then I can choose if I want one or the other or both. And
that's the flexibility right there. I mean, it's all those little things, little attention to detail and stuff that you all put into it makes it the dope mixer that it is. I wanted to read this out just because this is a good point. WMD mixer, performance mixer has been life-changing though. It has enough gain to bring line level sense and effects pedals into modular. I had no idea it could do that when I bought it. It's a good point. That's really dope. Because I mean, I just use it like a regular mixer. I mean, I got drum machine or a pedal or whatever it is on the side, and I just run that right into the mixer too, because my whole big case is running into my main audio interface. And then, you know, so I mean, I have everything like right in front of me, even though, you know, the case is there with the mixer. I have the whole Eurorack and some sense kind of going into that. That's taking care of that sort of thing for that side of the room. You know what I mean? It makes it really convenient.
Yeah, you hardly,
I want to jump in really quick, say hello to everybody in the chat. Thank you all for being here. Make sure if you have questions, pop them in the chat so we can pop them up, read them, and get them answered. And yeah, we'll get into the jams. And if you're new to this show, Gear Dive Jam, we have the gear tonight is the Metron and the Performance Mixer. The dive is what we're doing right now, and we'll soon start the jam. So yeah, welcome to the show if you're new, and welcome back if you're revisiting.
Indeed. Yep. Smash that like, hit the subscribe button and the notifications. All right. So I think we had was there a question or a comment? HP. What's the HP on it?
It's 40.
And so actually both the Metron or the mixer is 40.
Yeah, mixer is 40. I always forget, but I think Metron's 36.
Okay.
Let me look. I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 36.
And just for clarification, Alex, so the 8-channel, what's the 8-channel versus the 10-channel, like the full performance?
So 8 channels 40.
The HP. I mean, sorry.
So that's 40 HP, and then the channels expander is 10 HP, so it just adds 10, so it's 50.
Got it.
Oh, so actually, let's break that down a bit. So you have the performance mixer, and then the performance mixer has several expansion modules that you can get for it. What are those expansion modules for?
So there's the PM mutes, which is 6 HP, and it's basically just mutes for all the channels and the auxes. It also gives you a couple more CV inputs to control the aux sends with CVs.
Okay.
And then there's the channels expander. That's 10 HP. That gives you 2 more stereo channels. Each channel has 2 sets of inputs that you can switch between, just like the mono channels on Metron. And then there's some more gain available on those channels as well, so you can really boost stuff if you need. And then those have all of their own CV inputs on the channels expander, including the auxes as well.
Dope, yeah.
And then, I saw someone ask about A/B switching causing clicks, and it's a switch. So if you're running like 2 sine waves and you go in between, it'll create artifacts, but it's a quiet, high-quality switch, so it won't just it won't make a bunch of fuzziness unless it's really, really dirty. But yeah, it is a switch, and it's not like a Vactrol or something like that.
I haven't using it. I haven't had any issues hearing anything.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you mention the DB25? I'm sorry, I'm monitoring the
I missed your DB25.
Yeah.
So DB25 is 4 HP, and that is 2 DB25 snake outputs. Those connect to the back, and it gives you all of the channels, including the mixer, or the channels expander channels. So 10 channels out. It ends up being a full 16 channels, 2 full 8-channel snakes. You get the left and right out, and then you get the pre-fader out for every channel, 2 outs per stereo channel. And it is pre-fader, it is pre-CV, and pre-panning. So as far as the outs, those outs go, you're basically recording what you're putting in there. You're not getting all of those movements. But the idea is that you get you also get the master. So the idea is to listen to the master and be able to go back and fix any mistakes while you're going and creating the fades.
Yeah.
It's something that, it's definitely a pain point for some people. Some people love it. Some people don't like it as much. Totally understand. It's just the way that we ended up doing it. But for me, I would say it takes me about 10 minutes to recreate all of my fades and recreate a track. And then if something's too loud or too quiet, I can fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's dope about that is that the kind of integration that gives you into a hybrid system. And a lot of us have been, performing and doing live streams for the performances over the last year or so. And then, so I think it's more likely that a lot of us have these large, unruly systems going into DAWs and into audio interfaces. And for me, that makes so much sense to be able to have the DB25 and just run that into my Apollo 8. Because what I have is the Apollo 8, and I have an Audio Fuse 8 Pre where my external standard sense, the standard sense go into the Audio Fuse 8. Audio Fuse 8 via ADAT goes into the Apollo. And so right now I just have, stereo out on the WMD performance mixer going into the Apollo, but to be able to I'm going to get the DB25, but then I have individual tracks going into, you know what I mean? Like you all of a sudden have created this powerful situation
Well, and it's
Weird.
it's really nice to be able to, like, for a live stream, for instance, run everything into Ableton, take the 2-track into OBS or whatever, and then just stream your performance. And then when you come back weeks later, that performance, if you want to make a track out of it, you have all the tracks.
Exactly.
And all those things. And like what I've been doing to make tracks recently is like, I make something that I think sounds really cool. And then I just record like the different parts, and then I go in and I actually produce it. So it's like, you know, I'm losing that actual performance aspect, but at the same time, I'm going in and producing a track from something that I made previous. And that's I love being able to do that.
That's pretty dope. And so let's jump over to with the expansions for the performance mixer. You have expansion. You talked about Volterra already. Is there other expansions for the Metron?
Not.
Okay.
Wait, isn't the accent?
There's the accent output. I mean, we have so many modules, man.
The accent.
The
accent output.
You can have the accent output. So the accent connects to the back. It's 4 HP. Gives you 16 more gate outputs that are basically tied to whatever track they correspond with. So track 1 is the accents for track 1, and what it gives you is a 100% gate out for the step that you put it on. So it's basically a really primitive version of a track. So it's not necessarily a whole new track, but it does give you the options of taking things that you would normally burn a channel for and then use accent for. So like, for instance, I have one, I pretty much use it for Chimera, for the accent input on Chimera, and then the choke input on Crucible. And then sometimes I go as far as to like use it for Time Warp and accent input on Javelins and things like that. But I don't usually patch that complex. But I love being able to have that option and not just burn tracks and tracks for stuff where I'm just going to be using 100% case anyways.
Right.
Does that operate like the Volterra for the UI? Like you push a button on that, and then the matrix is for controlling the accent?
So you hold the button on accent itself, and then your gate sequence you're looking at will go dim, but you'll still be able to see where the gates are, and then you can apply accents to those to any step really.
Okay. With the okay, I have a question actually about the Metron, Alex. So with the gate setting, like I'll go in and change it between I think the standard right now it's set to its default is 15. Is there a way to change the default to like a higher number?
Oh, I think that the only way to do that is to just to do it at the beginning of your session. I don't think that that's something that saves on power down or power up. That's not a bad idea because I'm always like flipping over to 100 or something like that. So.
Yeah, like because I go through 100, like go through. I mean, when I save the pattern, it does save there, but it would be kind of cool to go to an empty pattern and know that it's already at 100, and then I could dial it down if necessary, or 50%.
As you're bringing them in.
What happened? Say it again.
You mean like when you're hitting triggers, when you're programming triggers, or
yeah, like to set like a number, whether it's 50 or 75, or right now it's like the default is 15.
Right. Yeah. So, well, the trigger's even shorter than 15, and then when you go to the gate like mode, and you're inputting gates, the first one would be 15.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could probably I could think about making it just stay where you were and then save that on power down. But at the same time, like it's, then the question is, does it save to the sequences that the sessions that you save and things like that? Does that setting get saved? And that might just be too deep for a setting like that.
Got you. Cool.
So there's one question here. Does the Metron have probability functionality?
Absolutely. So that's something I've been using a ton, and something that you'll see in my performance. I used to be all about making like 8 bar, 16 bar patterns, Metron can do, its max pattern length is 16 bars. Each track can be a different pattern length. And then you can add probability to any steps. And so what I've been doing a lot is doing 1 or 2 bar patterns. And then especially for like my bass line, and then maybe for like the closed hi-hats that go around my solid open hi-hats, I'll do a low probability every once in a while, especially for bass lines. I'll write a bass line, make something I think sounds pretty cool, and then I'll just add some more triggers around the like parts that like really characterize that bass line, and then I'll give those probability. So then that makes it sound like it's a longer pattern, but I'm only playing a 16 set pattern. That's something I've been doing a ton, and you'll hear in my performance.
Dope. Well, let's get into, you want to get it rolling, Corey? Should we?
I think it's about that time.
All right.
So we're going to drop your performance first?
Yeah, I kept it short and sweet. I tried to focus on the things that I love to do, number one, but also make sure that I was focusing on something just to show a different feature, I guess. Mm. All right, so everybody mute up. And
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks. Yeah, I mean,
tell us about the patch.
Well, the idea was like, I guess one of the things that I really like to do, aside from writing music, I like to practice like how I will perform. And so I wanted to take like a simple pattern and see if I could make variations and make it sound different. And so that's where I practice, like using the faders, dropping fills, and pulling in and out. So basically, I'm gating the level, and I'm using what was I using? The Philistry on one channel, and on the other one I was using the Pams, but I was sequencing the Pams off of track 16 on a completely different pattern. So that's where I was getting that upswing happening by using the Pams to trigger the level, if that makes sense, like the level inputs. And then, yeah, so that was it. Like, I just wanted to see, like, yeah, juggling faders, juggling fills.
And a little live patching.
Yeah, and like live patching, pulling it in and out. Like, and I like doing that, like even playing with my live set. So it was just, it's one way for me to take a fundamental pattern and be creative and create a variation in playing a live set. So I don't have to completely switch my song. Like, just by gating that melody and then pulling it out, it like kind of makes its own fill within that. And then by sequencing the Pamela's workout and using a different sequence on the Metron to add different groove to the percussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we got a question here for you.
Yes.
For those that might be listening and not reading, the question is from the Aphonics Travarsi. Is that your case for Colorado next week? And is that the show that we were talking about a moment ago?
Yes.
And so I feel like this might be a good time to at least just mention that. I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah, Alex and I are going back to back with our live modular setups. We're giving you some acid jams for sure. Looking forward to that.
And live in Colorado. We are back to live music, folks. We're back to live music, live in person, folks. Oh, yeah. Dope. Okay.
Back-to-back modular set. I feel like that's not something you see every day. So if you're around,
you are correct, sir. That is not something you see every day.
When you asked me if I wanted to do that, I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds amazing." You were just at first asking me to like play, and then when I saw the back-to-back, I was like, "Oh yeah, we definitely got to do that."
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention too, like, is Aphonic. You're part of the Colorado crew, Alex, and they're doing the meetup at the Locust Cider. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I think it's Locust Cider.
Locust Cider, and that's Saturday night. And Modalist is playing, and the Aphonic, and Sign Mountain, I think, is playing too. So, yeah, back to live music.
I don't want to overlook this question. So it says, wait, let's just talk about your patch. The clock from Pam's to the CV for track volume.
Not the clock. So I'm clocking Pam's with a trigger sequence from the Metron, and then using one of the outputs from the Pam's to sequence the level input on the performance mixer. Is that
right?
Yeah.
That's what it's creating. That was one of the things you were using to create such movement in the track, because I could definitely hear things moving around. So that makes sense.
Because the Pam's, if you clock it regular, it's just always on the one. Mm-hmm. But if you sequence the clock, then you can swing it. You can swing your seq with whatever's coming out of Pam. So
then Pam's is still just sending gates out, so it's going to be kind of choppy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that Mason at WMD really likes to do. Vino Malo is just like, have a sequence rolling and then either throw some like a real fast trigger into it, so it's just like stutter effect, or something with envelopes, so it's a little bit more soft, maybe not so like clicky, I guess, because it, an instant on and off will be kind of clicky, but depending on what you're using, and that's the big thing. If you're using like high, stuff with high frequency content, you can do that all day. You aren't going to hear it.
Right. Yeah. And the cool thing about PAMs too is you have the option, like if you're like sequencing the levels, you can change the gate to like a triangle, and then you can control the level of the actual CV output of each channel. So then you can, if you feel like you're getting to that point where it's about to get that clicky sound, you can just dial down the level on it.
Yeah.
So that's
Dope. I dig that. That's creative passion. I dig that. Let's see. Want to get into Chris's performance?
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Is there anything you want to say, Chris, beforehand, or do you want to wait till after we play?
Just to set it. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I've done a ton of live looping in my past, so I decided to figure out how to use the Metron to do live looping about an hour or two before I did the video. But I'm happy with how it's worked. There's a bunch of other stuff I wanted to do with random and bursts and some of the unquantized recording that I didn't use. But in any case, yeah. So this is all again live looping with the Metron. Yeah.
And so before we get into this, I like the fact that you use live looping with the Metron. I wanted to dive into that conversation and that sort of workflow after the video show. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody mute up. Dope.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
I dig it. I dig it.
Dope.
Dope. So, Chris, tell us about the patch that you did and how you incorporated live looping and
yeah.
in there.
So the patch that I did is I plugged my Metron into my Crater, my Crucibles, my Chimera, and my Fracture, and I plugged those into my performance mixer. So except for PAMS, which is the clock for Metron, everything is WMD.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dope.
So super simple.
The WMD patch.
I patched channel 1 of the Volterra to the pan for the bass drum. I patched 4 and 5 over to Chimera and Fracture for doing pitch stuff. And so then after I laid down the main loops, I did the other cool thing that, again, I love about this, is I changed one of the tracks to 15 instead of 16. So it started rolling around, right, the whole pattern, every loop through. And then I changed one of the hi-hats to 17. So it was rolling around as well.
Nice.
And so then after that, I jumped into the FX page that you love, Teresi, as well. And you know, when you really get to playing that, right, it's just got. I mean, I still listen to it, and there's these times where it's just like going, and boom, and like yeah. So a lot of fun.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like the fills. I'm like, am I doing a lot of fills? Oh, well.
Yeah.
But it is performance, though, you know.
Yeah, I remember like some people starting out, you know, with it, and I'm like, all right, so it's kind of like Ableton. You're going to use beat repeat all the time until you realize that you use it too much, and then you might not use it so much, but it's still really great.
Yeah. I always talk about delays as that, you know, when you get a delay the first time, you overuse it to figure out how to use it, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then if you're me, you just overuse it because you love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That would be me.
That would be me too.
No doubt.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out you were using the triplet fills a lot, which was cool to hear. Like it switched from the 16th note grid over to the triplet grid.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's micro timing and shuffle per track, as well as the triplets fills, and then you can make your own fills as well. Did you make any of those fills that you were using? Were those custom at all?
No. I just it was just a handful I was using, right? Yeah,
that's awesome because I've never made my own either. It's like the ones that are in there are good enough for me, but you can make them if you want. So I'm always curious to know like what features people use.
So wait a minute, let's talk about that a minute. You could create your own fills on Metron. How would you do something like that?
So there's a button combination to get there, and honestly, I haven't used it in so long, I don't remember what it is, so I'll have to use the manual to get there. But it just basically brings up a pattern, and you can just make a pattern.
Just make it custom, and then recall it.
Pattern, save it into that slot. And then how the fills work is it's like a Casio tone keyboard. You know, you press the button, and it'll do the fill for as long as you hold it.
I love it. That's dope.
And that's literally where the idea came from. You know, I loved playing chord organs and Casios when I was a kid, and all that fill button on the Casio is just so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it's such a great way to transition too. You know, like drop and fill, pull shit out.
That loop stuff's fun too, right? Because it's grabbing that section wherever it's at, and so on occasion it ended up like everything was quiet all of a sudden, right? And for a second while I was playing, I was like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's what's looping." Let go of the loop button and
don't loop silence.
Yeah. And I really like to do quantized followed by unquantized stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the assign page, right, where you can do both quantized record or unquantized, and in one of the recordings that I didn't end up using, I did remember to do some of that. So, right, my first laying down of stuff is quantized, so at least you've got some beat locked in there. Then you can throw some unquantized stuff on top of that for flavor.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, that's something like I was messing around with the other day was the micro timing grid, and when you record unquantized, it just records into the micro time grid.
Right.
but yeah, it's fun to. I've been having fun with that, but it's like, those are the things, especially programming it, that takes a little longer, and it can be done, live, but that's something I never remember to do live.
Right. Yeah.
Alex, I have a question too. Is there any plans for any sort of MIDI implementation or breakout or anything like that? Or have you guys thought about that or talked about that?
I mean, it was like, yes, we have thought about it and talked about it a lot, and that's definitely like one of the things we want to do.
Mhm.
And we actually, I think, may have like designed a front panel, but haven't done anything else for that module's idea. The problem is when you come up with something, it's like, oh, well, could it do something else? What else could, does it need to be in and out and stuff like that? So we haven't gotten that far. But yeah, it's on our mind. It's something we'd like to do. But we've got some other modules we're going to be releasing this year that, are ahead of that idea.
Cool. And looping MIDI is weird.
Yeah.
Right. Overlapping events that are conflicting. Strange things.
Yeah, exactly.
My day job relates to some of that. So yeah.
Right. No off, that's like, you always got to send the no off, and that can be hard sometimes.
Right. Well, Alex, are you ready to dive into your? Are you ready? Do you?
Hold on, I got a question here. I mean, you did mention it, but I feel like this is worth a couple more words. So you can record unquantized into the Metron.
Yeah. So with the assignable inputs, you can select record unquantized. It will be quantized to the micro timing grid, which I think is 24 ppq in. I can't quite remember how the resolution of the micro timing grid, but it's 12. You get 12 micro steps per step. So if someone could do that real quick.
Nice.
But yeah, so it'll record to that grid. And then if you want to shift something around, you can go to that step, enter the micro timing grid, and move it around after the fact if you were way too late or way too early. Or you can kind of see where you're at. But yeah, that's what it does. So it is not quantized to 16th notes anymore, and you can get quite loose with it.
It's very loose, is what it sounds like. That's dope. Yeah. That's really dope. Because I find that that's something that's missing, or at least it has traditionally been missing, and especially in Eurorack sequencers and stuff. So it's dope that you all included stuff like that, where you can get as long and loose and hear what you want to.
Wait, you froze, Corey.
Yeah, especially the with like hip hop and stuff. If you want to record in your own swing and get your own groove, that's super important.
Dope. Corey, that's always been a long conversation that I hear you and like Ali always talk about.
It's the Achilles heel of a lot of sequences, quite frankly, especially in Eurorack. And even some other devices too, but so it's dope to hear that's a part of the workflow and the train of thought that it's available to you if that's the way you want to record and want to program a sequence. Dope. Well, yeah, let's do it. Troy, actually, let's get into Alex's jam. And Alex, you want to set it up or you want to talk about it after?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk a little bit. So what I decided to do was use Metron 100% from scratch. So my Metron is blank. The only thing that's on there when I start is a 4 on the floor kick that's in my headphones. So I have a metronome when I start the clock. And so I'm using an MPC for chords and like drum loops and stuff. It's basically a sequencer for the JU06. And then for some like top loops and like congas and things like that. Everything else is happening in the modular and being sequenced by Metron.
Dope. All right, let's get into it. Everyone mute up.
Nice, Alex.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was
Yes, sir.
too many kind of dancing, and then I lost track. Oh shit! I didn't.
Yeah, that was a dope set, man. A lot
Yeah,
of dope
very
stuff going in on and in. All right, go ahead.
Oh no, I just had a quick. How are you making that wash?
That
Like
is reverb.
that-
So that's reverb on the master. And so I have an Axis. There's a YouTube video that I made of how to patch it up with Axis, and I have the Eos Reverb from Audio Damage. Basically, I just high pass, and then I'm using the Axis as kind of a dry wet, but before the reverb. So it's basically a send to the reverb. So then when I turn it off, the tail still happens.
Gotcha. And you put that directly with the performance mixer, like through the mask, like.
Yeah, so it's like, I think my chain is Overseer, Axis to the reverb, back to Axis to muscle to the out. Yeah.
Very cool.
So yeah, a lot going on, a lot of modules in there, but I just wanted to like show what it's like to just like start from scratch, and then just kind of like let it roll. So I had the key in mind, and then for the first jam, and then for the second jam, when the like more choppy chords came in, those were chords in a simulator. So I had to change the key of the bass line and everything I was doing in real time. So I went into Metron and changed into Metron, changed the Volterra voltage range for the bass line that was being programmed. And it just was like all about just trying to make quick changes. But also like, just if I had an idea come to mind, just go for it. And that's what these two modules are all about, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't even know what to say. It was awesome.
It was
It always is.
I like the way you changed the bass line on the fly. What was the bass voice that you were using?
So
was it something sampled into something
yeah,
like
that's the sample. So real quick, I have 3 Overseer in my case. I absolutely love them. For the bass voice, it's just a single cycle sample being looped inside of a simulator. So that's my oscillator. That's running through a carbon and into a javelin as the envelope for carbon, as well as the VCA.
Very cool. So were you using the spectrums? Because I noticed you had 3 in your case.
So I have like a mini Moog voice up top, and kind of same as Chris, I used them in the first take and forgot to use them in the second take.
Okay, dope.
That's kind of like, that's my like that one's sequenced by the MPC. So that's like if I want to record something in via the pads or via like a MIDI controller, that's what that one's there for.
Gotcha.
And the other one is the one that I was using the whole time. That one is controlled by Metron and Volterra.
Got it. Dope.
Dope. And you know what? What I'm realizing right now is that we're going to have to do another show focused on WMD and all that other killer modules because it's just so many dope ones.
Yeah, there's all my drum modules, right? Yeah.
Yep.
No doubt. Well, yeah, that was a killer set, man, and all of this is so done. I think one thing I'm walking away from this is there's 2 things I'm walking away from this. Why does my loop never align with the availability of a Metron? And 2, the Metron is mad powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very cool stuff, man.
Yeah, and to talk about stock, like mixers are shipping now. If you want a performance mixer, the best way to get it is call your favorite dealer and try and put in like a reservation or a pre-order or something like that. They will get it relatively quick. We do have a long line of back orders on our, just a backlog, which means that they'll take a long time to get on our site because we'll be fulfilling dealer orders before we can allow website orders. So that's the fastest, quickest way to get one. And we're shipping new ones out, a new batch, like almost weekly. It's about every 2 weeks we ship a good sized batch out. And then Metron, same kind of idea. Those are coming out. The new batch is happening right now. So those should be shipping relatively soon. But same idea with those. Throw in a pre-order, and then we'll get it to your dealer as fast as we possibly can. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Dope. And I should also say too, at this point in time, everybody is having some, there's some level of slowness or some level of delay or some level of struggle because, the shortages and everything. And then, not only the shortages in parts, but two, whether people know it or not, COVID is still causing delays in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
One way or another, right? So a lot of times things are en route and in progress, but it just takes a little longer than it would have in 2019.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that's worth noting.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, part shortage has definitely affected us pretty heavily. And then, just like we're pretty much back to normal now. We all know what we're doing, but most of us are working from home and are going to continue to do so. And so that's a thing. But I wouldn't say that's a cause of any delays by any means now. Mm-hmm. But, that definitely was a little hiccup in the beginning. And but yeah, it's also like the rise in demand. A lot of people are getting into this now, and we're experiencing the exact same rise in demand that the car industry, the cell phone industry, the electronics industry in general, that, the rise in demand that has caused this part shortage is, something that everybody's experiencing as well. So, we're doing our best, and we'll be shipping stuff out as, quick as we can, but we're not going to sacrifice quality for that.
Certainly. I would never expect you all, because I know it's going to be top notch every time. And I want to just, I'll put this up here because I'm glad that somebody mentioned it, because I think Alex, you do such a great job with the tutorials and videos. They're very clear, concise, and interesting. They're engaging. So real dope that somebody mentioned, check out the 12, I think there's maybe 12 vids up there that covers like 95% of Metron switches. And you gotta love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tried to cover everything, and I tried to make them concise. If you watch all of them, it's a marathon. I get sick of my voice, like, listening to a podcast where they yell at you all day, but, same idea. I tried to make it fun, tried to throw in some comedy here and there, but, just also tried to, no bullshit my way through it and just make it very useful. And I hope that it helps. And that was one of the things I was really happy about when we did this, that was like, all right, this thing is so deep. Like, let's support it, and let's try and cover everything with like a video manual. And so, definitely check out that playlist. It's on our YouTube.
Yeah, I referenced the video for setting up the external record trigger, right?
Yeah.
Using the assign, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I use it all. I use those videos all the time for myself. If someone asks me a question and it's not something I use all the time, I'll go back, either reference the manual we work really hard on, but I'll also watch the videos.
Yeah, it makes sense. You know what's funny is that reminds me of something. I'm getting tangential now, but Eminem and someone else says they have to. Eminem and Lil Wayne says that they sometimes reference the internet to remember their lyrics. So why not reference your own tutorial videos?
Right.
It makes sense.
Absolutely.
And before we get out, I think we're going to be starting to close out. No, Travarsky, we want to talk about, I got something I want to put up here for you to discuss right quick.
I just want to mention it again, because we talked about the 2 shows, and I know we have a lot of Colorado people watching this. I'm looking forward to just seeing you all in person. Alex, I'm looking forward to jamming with you, and I'm looking forward to this Locust Cider gig as well. Yeah, it's just gonna be fun hanging out in real life. I mean, I don't know what.
I got some
live
stuff
music,
too, if that's all
live
right.
and in person is back. That's dope to know.
Yeah.
Dope to see.
I got some stuff to plug too, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it, please.
So yeah, WMD's got new modules coming out. So by the end of the month, probably not by the end of the month, but you know, we're definitely gonna have some new modules coming out this year. So check those out. Also, I started a music label. It's called Perpetual Joy. So the first release was one of my singles for my new project, which is called ALX 106. You can check it out on Spotify or listen to it on Bandcamp. It's less of a housey techno thing for me. It's more of a 90s electro and hip hop inspired project. So definitely go and check that out. And then we have a new release coming out from a dude called Solar Cat, who is 50% of the duo Moss Pig, and really good friend of mine, helping me out with the label. And he's putting out 2 banger house music tracks, kind of more like tech house kind of things. And yeah, hardware guy, makes a lot of cool stuff, uses modular as well. So the idea of our label is just putting out music that we think is dope from all the people we've met through the scene. It doesn't have to be modular. It's not necessarily a modular focused label or anything like that, but you can expect lots of Colorado homies to come out on it, and my music as well. So again, that's Perpetual Joy. You can find it on Instagram. It's the one with 3 Ys, Perpetual Joy.
I dropped your Bandcamp link in the chat too.
Dope, thank you.
Yeah.
So some next releases will happen over the next couple months as well.
Dope. I love seeing that. I'm glad that I just want to say, I think it's super important that, you know, in this industry where we talk about gear and stuff a lot, but let's be real, we do all of this stuff because we're music lovers or music makers, and it's dope to see that there's this movement towards putting out and supporting the independent music that comes from that. So I'm glad you have your own label now, bro, and I think that's super important. I love what you do, just in general. I love what you do with the Freak Boutique, and good to see you having your own label too. So
yeah.
Congrats on that.
You guys have a Freak Boutique in person coming up this week too, don't you? Or
Tuesday. So it's this coming Tuesday. We will have a Freak Boutique in person. It will also be streamed live on YouTube.
Sick.
And we are going to experiment with a remote performer. So we'll have one remote performer who's coming in from Seattle, and we'll be streaming them into the bar. And
cool.
Hopefully that will work. You know, we went online, and we had such a good time, and we met so many awesome people from all over the world, and we wanted to keep that vibe alive. So we're going to do our best to try and make that still happen when we go back in person. And that's really like what Perpetual Joy is all about. Like you said, Corey, like, you know, we're all about gear. We love talking about gear. But to me, like, I make music because it makes me happy and it creates joy. And I had a hard year, just as I'm sure everybody did last year. And I made so much music over the past year that's literally like just for the sake of making it. And it was just pure joy. And so that's what we're trying to provide, is just put out, you know, can be consistent, put out music as much as we can, and, you know, just perpetually spread the joy of music. So, but yeah, it's the idea of Freak Boutique, you know, just meeting people and expanding it. This just felt like the next step.
Dope. I can appreciate that. I love that you're doing it. And yo, before we get out, I also want to plug the fact that if you don't know about Digging in the Wires, which is a Modbap compilation. It's a double LP Modbap compilation. It's some of the dopest modular hip hop that I think I've ever heard on this compilation we put together. There's a lot of people from the whole community, and it's amazing what people were able to pull together and their creative techniques. I mean, there's some stuff you listen to you probably wouldn't believe uses modular on here. I mean, because there's a couple guys that get into guitar and some other things and looping things. So yeah, be sure to go over to beatpeople.bandcamp.com and check out Digging in the Wires. Digging in the Wires is also a double LP. So it's a double limited edition LP. It'll be shipping in a couple of months, but there's still some pre-orders available for it. So check that out. And this is on the Beat People label. There's a couple other things that are up there that I think people will enjoy too. So there's Trippy Tape stuff by New Wave from Russia. There's Sour Apple from my man Kipsky, who's kind of spearheading the whole syntablism thing. And it's a lot of dope music. So go check that out. That's beatpeople.bandcamp.com. So yeah.
I can't wait to get my copy. Sure.
I can't wait to get my copy.
I'm going to say two more things while we're on a roll of like just supporting the community. I know tomorrow, I believe it's tomorrow, someone please in the chat correct me, but Podular Modcast is being live. It's like an IRL situation in New York. I think he flew to New York. He's in New York. They're doing a whole meetup, and I believe that's tomorrow. I could be wrong, but either way, go to Podular Modcast Instagram, and then you can just confirm. But I know it's coming up. If not tomorrow, it's definitely coming up.
Sure.
And I'll be on Electronic Sounds audio channel on Sunday for some live patching Sunday morning, so that should be fun too.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. So, hey, thanks everybody for coming through. Like we said before, be sure to subscribe to Gear Dive Jam. If you're not following us on Instagram, go over to Instagram, Gear Dive Jam. Follow us there and interact with us. And smash that like button and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified when the next episodes are coming up and coming out. And on that note, it has been a good one.